Last week, sadly, I rehomed some of my favorite and definitely my most expensive reptiles. But guess what? I got some that are way more expensive, so let's set them up, move them around in enclosures, and I'll teach you how you can get expensive reptiles even if you don't have a lot of money. This is Tilly, and Tilly isn't my most expensive animal. You can buy these for, $600 to $1,000, but I got this one, and well, I sold these ones. So there are expensive reptiles here, but what makes Tilly so expensive is feeding this animal because they need bugs every single day, and bugs are expensive. Well, until now. If you have an animal that eats lots of bugs, right now, AB Dragons is giving 35% off the first auto ship on Chewy. I got to spend all weekend with AB Dragons and Chewy at the Tinley Expo. That video is coming next week. So go to the link below, 35% off your first auto ship order, and that way your frilled dragon or bearded dragon or leopard gecko or whatever can have nutritious dubia roaches and it won't break your bank. So instead of me sitting here explaining this to you, let's go in the other reptile room and I'll show you exactly what we're doing today. And the expensive reptiles I'm talking about is I got another pair of emerald tree boas, which are my favorite boa species, and these ones are a lot bigger than the Suriname. So these are Guyanese. Guyana is here, Suriname is here, so different locale, same species. But the problem is I had them in quarantine and I didn't have an enclosure set up for them. So now we have to do a little mix up of all my really expensive species. Frankie, the Fiji banded iguana, originally was in here, but now he's in here. And the reason is, I was gonna put the emeralds in this Zen Habitats enclosure. The problem is, they're plexiglass, and I'll show you why that doesn't work. So, as you can see, I can fit my entire hand through here, which means that those emeralds are gonna get through here no problem. So obviously we can't do that. So I didn't wanna have emeralds just around in the room and every time we walk in we have to worry about them being out. So we put Frankie in here and then we put the emeralds in this enclosure here, this cages enclosure, because I was committed to getting them out of quarantine since we've had them for over 3 months now. And then what I decided is I have another 4-foot enclosure like this. So instead, I'm gonna put Frankie back where he belongs. I'm gonna put Tilly, the frill dragon, in this enclosure, and then I'm gonna put the emeralds in the other 4-foot enclosure. So it's a lot of work, so let's get started. So here I stand in front of my water damaged wall. So you hear that sound? I hear that sound too. See where the water is? You guys remember the fish tank with the turtles that exploded on me in February? All that. So anyway, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this enclosure, Tilly's in it, and as you can see, it's not really in great shape right now. So what we're gonna have to do is make it so that they can have perches. Because emerald tree boas need horizontal perches, so we're gonna use dowel. So the idea with this is basically I just had to make sure that the dowel would go through. So you make them even, drill holes with a hole saw, and then literally screw in 2x4s for feet. I'm not gonna show you how to do it because it's gonna be really boring. I already know the criticism is gonna be, well, that thing is ugly, man. That looks just like the pile of sticks. Like, realistically, what I need here is I need something that's functional. I'm trying to breed these animals to proliferate the species so they don't have to come in wild caught anymore. So if it's not the prettiest thing and you don't like it, it's no big deal. But I do have all this extra cork, which is really expensive stuff. So let's see if we can make that functional for them to at least climb around even though they can't perch on it. So for sure this will be the ugliest enclosure. We cleaned the glass the best we could. Unfortunately, the glass doesn't come out, so it's hard to clean the inside. Thanks Trish for cleaning it. And then if you're wondering, Elfie is helping too. He's just sleeping in the utility hallway. And people ask all the time, when you change enclosures from one reptile to the next, how much do you have to sanitize it? And as long as your animals are all healthy and quarantined, which is what we've done, you should be okay. So if you put in emeralds where there used to be a frill dragon, you're gonna be okay. I know that in the wild, they're gonna have different microbiology and things in their gut tract and things like that. Just clean out all the poop. Make sure you clean off all the poop of everything. Clean out the shed, make it reasonably clean. But all of that microfauna in there are so many isopods, it's insane. In the bottom, I don't wanna get rid of those, so it's ready to go. Let's go ahead and put them in there. And it does need a light on the top to like a linear light, but we're trying to block the screening as much as possible to keep the humidity up. Frankie's gonna go back into the enclosure that he came from. He needs a taller enclosure. I wanna get him a taller enclosure. I thought I had it all figured out. And then we got those emeralds, so I'm just gonna order one, and that way we can move. We've got stuff we have to move over there. It's this whole thing. And I understand that these enclosures don't have big backgrounds and they're, bioactive looking, although they are bioactive. But then there's also this one. And if you wanna see what I'm talking about and what's going in this enclosure and how it was made, my friend at Herp Havoc, Cody, came down all the way from the US. He set it up for me. We're gonna do that video in a couple of weeks, so the subscribe is like down there. We're gonna put Frankie just back where it was. We cleaned up the shed and we cleaned up the poop. Well, there was really no poop because they were only in there for a couple days, refill the water, and then that's it. And then we're gonna move on and put Tilly in this enclosure here. We'll finish that in a second, but I promised you I would tell you how you can keep expensive reptiles even if you don't have a lot of money. And really this is a lot of how to justify buying the reptiles, because here's what I'd recommend. Never take out loans to buy reptiles unless you have a business, you have a corporation and it's running smooth and you're just taking out a loan to buy things that you know, like you have a business sense, right? If you have a business off the ground, it's different. Sometimes you have to borrow money to run a business. But if you're like me, let's say, where most of my business isn't breeding and you're just gonna try breeding something, don't borrow money. Don't go into debt for an animal or a species that you don't breed or haven't bred before. I don't recommend going into debt to do this. However, if you saved up a bunch of money or you have some money and you're thinking, should I spend it? First of all, are you going to enjoy it? Because that's the thing. There's a lot of expensive reptiles out there and people think, oh, I want monkey tail skink so bad, but I can't afford it. And then they'll just go blow some money on it. Do you really want that animal? I mean, I wanted monkey tail skinks. I still love them. I sold them. This is part 2 of the video from last week, which you can watch right here, in which I sell those animals because I felt selfish keeping them because I couldn't figure out how to breed them. So I sold them to somebody who could breed them. I don't know if that person borrowed the money to pay me, but he had a breeding operation and knew how to breed them, and he'll make his money back in the first year. But what if you're like broke for real? Like when I first started the channel, so freaking broke, I couldn't buy anything basically. All the animals that I got were secondhand. And I know that's a weird thing to say about an animal with secondhand, but basically I hate the word rescue because I didn't really rescue them. They weren't in bad homes, but I would go get animals that maybe somebody was trying to get out of the hobby and was selling for cheap. Somewhere, if you go to a reptile expo, say, and say a crocodile skink would be 600 bucks. I would go and I'd buy it off of Kijiji and I'd get it from someone who wanted to sell it for $250 and the headline was needs to be gone today. Something like that. Now I'm not saying take advantage of people, obviously don't do that. But those are ways to do it. Now if you want something like a Fiji banded iguana that will never be, I need it gone today, there's a huge demand for them. And I know you in the US can't have Fiji banded iguanas, I'm just using this as an example. The secret to getting these animals for cheap is don't. Because if you see an animal like a Fiji bandit or a Boelens or something like that, emerald tree boa, on sale for super duper cheap, almost always there's something wrong with it. Now there are some cases where somebody's just like, throw their hands in the air, I'm done, I want out immediately, give everything away, but that's super duper rare. Do your due diligence, don't get taken advantage of. When I bought my Fiji banded iguana, I was lucky. I got a deal because they knew I was going to feature that breeder on the channel. They were going to get some exposure in exchange for money, which is how those things work. You pay to be on a billboard, same sort of thing. You pay to be in front of an audience that will then buy your product. Or let's suppose you work at a reptile shop or you work for a breeder, for example. If you worked for me, a lot of the time, you know, I had a zookeeper for a long time. I would give her animals to take home. Here, this animal isn't serving my collection. I could sell it, but you know, great work. Here's an animal. So there's ways that you can barter your time, your effort, trade animals that you already have. Let's suppose you're dead set, you have like a bunch of animals and you're dead set and you want a Fiji banded iguana. I don't know why I keep using this. Don't click off. I know you can't have them. Crazy morpho ball python, whatever, right? And you have a different breeding project, cresta geckos, chihuahua geckos, lychees, whatever.
Look how freaking big he is.
What's his name?
Dave.
Work on a trade. Try to do a trade or sell what you have and use that money. And the other thing too is make sure you can feed the reptiles. Like we said at the top of the show, that animal right in the back there, oh, we haven't done that part yet. A complaint I get about this enclosure is that there's a lot of space at the top that's not being utilized. And the reason is there's a strong UVB here. And if the UVB is too close to the animal can get UVB damage or a burn or whatever you want to call it. Basically, UVB too close to an animal is not good. So that's why there's so much space in between. The only way I can get around it is if I hung the UVB up, but then the further away it is from the mesh, the more the mesh is going to block out the UVB. But I have read your comments in the last reptile room tour, which you can watch right here. And I agree with you. This is kind of boring, so let's add a little bit more cork and make it a little bit more fun for our friend Tilly the Frilly. But I want to ask you, let me know in the comments, what should go in here? I was thinking like a vertical yucca up on the top, or in the middle of the back rather, and that way it gives it some height. Obviously we can't go too high, but I could plant it because it is for an insectivore, so he's not gonna eat the plants. What plants would you put in there? Let me know below. Tilly's warmed up and ready to go. So what I love about frill dragons is obviously the frill. Wow. See, normally super chill, but we had them in a tiny box while we were doing all that work for about an hour and a half. What I love about them, besides the frill, which you almost never see, because what you might not know is frill dragons don't frill up unless they get scared or they're trying to ward off a predator or whatever. So if at night he's sleeping and then I turn the lights on and I'm right there, I've seen them frill up because of that. They open the mouth and they have these big canine teeth. They're super duper chill. But in general, it's an agamid species that is gonna be arboreal. So it has height, 4 feet, and it's about a 2-foot lizard. So you're giving them double the space of their body, double the length. And also the width is basically the same as their body, right? So from nose all the way to here is basically 2 feet. So if I ever don't have a measuring tape or a ruler, I'm just gonna grab Tilly and then I know it's like in 2-foot increments, right? So 4-foot enclosure. Exactly. So this is a 2-foot animal, perfect size in my opinion. And because normally they're super chill, I can just have him on my shoulder like I do Diamond all the time, but he's really warmed up and maybe stressed. So let's go ahead and put him back where he belongs. So there's a perfect example of why I need something in the back. And realistically, it does look like wood. So it might take him a second. He's fine. These animals can fall a decent distance. They're arboreal, but of course it's bedding down there and it's totally fine. And look at all these isopods. There's so many isopods, so it'll clean up the poop. Obviously still clean up the poop yourself, but if you leave any remnants, it'll clean it for you. Also, Zen habitats, for crying out loud, make it so you can remove the glass. The glass is all scratched up, first of all, because it's plexiglass. But second of all, you can't clean it properly because my arms reach this way, but then you always miss this section right here because the glass, oh, actually the glass does come out. Sorry, but my point still stands. Glass is always better, always get glass. Doesn't sound like this, first of all, and then also you don't get this scratchy scratch stuff. So anyway, always have removable doors for every enclosure company. Okay, now that Tilly the Frilly is back there, Tilly the Frilly costs a lot of money to feed. Of course, I gave you a cheat to how to feed things for cheaper with dubia roaches, but either way, make sure you can feed the animals. The emeralds are really cheap to feed. Those emeralds are freaking beautiful. And those animals, let's suppose that, you know, I buy in bulk, I buy rat orders thousands at a time, put them in my freezer. They cost me, say, $2.50, right? They eat one a week. That's $6 a week. My geriatric Pomeranian, I just bought a bag of food for $115 that'll last a month. He's got sensitive stomach, but like, look how cute he is. So Flutie gets whatever he wants. He runs the house. There are way more expensive pets to have, like this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. But either way, they're all worth it in my opinion. And the question, well, how much money did those animals actually cost you? Well, I'm kind of did a lot of working. So let's talk about like retail price. That Fiji banded iguana was listed for, I think, $3,500 at the time. 2 years ago, I got him for $2,000. The frilled I got for honestly next to nothing, but I think it was $250, but they go for about $600 to $1,000. I just got them from a friend who runs a reptile shop. We have a really good relationship and I got that animal for a really good price. Just like the redfoot, by the way. Have you seen the size of this freaking redfoot tortoise? Anyway, they're inside for the winter. So it's winter now, so sad. And then the emeralds, I think I got for $1,500, but realistically, they're probably worth $2,000, maybe a little bit more. $2,000 if they're from a place where you can get your money back if something goes wrong. In a private sale, their animals are generally going to be cheaper. Plus, the locality isn't really worth as much as the ones that I have upstairs, even though they're bigger and technically proven. But the thing is, the person that I bought them from didn't breed them. They didn't breed for her either. They bred for the person before them. So are they actually proven? That's the other thing. So we're at almost $6,000 worth of animals that I got for well under $4,000. And the upkeep is next to nothing. Now, I'll tell you what, herbivores, I did a whole video right here. Frankie does cost a lot of money during the winter months because I have to buy the produce. But during the summer, once, you know, July rolls around, I have free-ish greens that I can pick in my garden, but that just is a little bit of time and maintenance and a little bit of money to start up in the spring. So please do hit subscribe because I want to show you that cool, man, the Herp Havoc did such a good job on this enclosure. That's coming in a couple weeks. We got a Halloween special coming up, all that. Please hit subscribe. The Patreon supporters, you guys know, you guys get one-on-ones. I have 4 of those this week. I love talking to you guys. All that and more for as little as $1 a month. That's it. I do videos twice a week, so I'll see you in the next one.